Yes, it is the DPB show. It's Sunday here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington, Normal, and beyond. Uh, and the reason why we say beyond is because we are just not only on the radio, we're on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble, Rumble, the parallel economy to YouTube. So, hey, join us over there on Facebook if you can, and the YouTube, and the chat is open. We'd love to hear from you. Obviously, so much to break down and to cover in such a short period of time, but we're going to try to do the best we can. Obviously, in the midst of what is happening in this world today, in the brokenness of this world. Obviously, the theme of my show is about corruption and exposing corruption and uncovering corruption. And if ever there was a more corrupt world than the United States district attorneys and some of their dealings with our former president, I don't know if you can recall at any time in the history of the United States of America that we've had such chaos, such craziness, such blatant disregard for the Constitution and the constitutional processes of electing our presidents. Because I think the jury is definitely not even, they've already ruled. The ruling is this. This is election interference. This is a corrupt presidential administration looking to weaponize every opportunity they can to upend a political opponent. I don't know how else to define it. You know, we try to break these things down, and they seem to be very complicated. And I know many of you out there probably get caught up to the point where you're just like, forget it already. I'm lost in the confusion. Well, we're going to try to make it easy. We're going to take the complex and we're going to try to break it down and simplify it. I know that sometimes the headliners, you know, they've got such big audiences that they just are really speaking to an audience of their most avid supporters. And when you hear the names thrown around, like, for instance, I was talking about this with my wife this morning. There's Comey, James Comey, former FBI director who was fired by President Donald J. Trump, to Comer, who is a congressman who is currently involved in the investigation of Hunter Biden. This gets so looping that some people say, wait a minute, how can those two people be on the same side or the opposite sides of something? And it does. It's confusing. So we're going to try to break that down for you today. It's not easy here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. But once again, we would love to hear from you at 309-451-9299, 309-451-9299. Of course, always across the way, I couldn't do it without him, is Kevin Ferris, who was trying to motion to me earlier, and I'm going to see, did I touch upon everything I was supposed to, Kevin?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure you were looking at the camera.
Oh.
Not my laptop. That make sure you look at the camera, not the laptop.
I know. Okay. Kevin, it's going to take me about year 25 to stop looking at when I have that word. I don't know. It is what it is, right? You can take a radio guy and try to make him a TV guy. I was neither a radio guy or a TV guy. Just so happened to, get an opportunity to be on this show. But I want to talk first and foremost about the chaos that's going on, the confusion, the distractions that are created throughout the United States of America. Springfield, Illinois, same thing, confusion at its highest. Governor Pritzker now has indeed signed into law the bill that allows for non-citizens. Now, some will say, well, but they're classified as DACA, meaning they're dreamers. So therefore, they qualify for the same constitutional rights as citizens. Au contraire, no, that's not the case. But needless to say, he signed into legislation a law that allows non-citizens to become police officers, and therefore non-citizens to be eligible to arrest citizens. And that is the craziness of Springfield. Locally, we have our own craziness. So, somebody had pointed out to me. They said, talking about Chris Coos and some of the dealings that Chris Coos has, our mayor of Normal, or the mayor Mboka with Bloomington. Why isn't it that we don't cover more about those gentlemen? Well, I have a picture from Heartland Community College where I was out there with Kat Peterson covering a stop that Governor Pritzker made to talk about different programs where people were eligible to get monies from the state government for higher education and the availability of funding. And while I was there, guess who else was right there front and center but Mayor Mboka and Mayor Coos? They both were standing right near the podium with them. So when people are wondering what is the flavor of how things move in the state of Illinois, there's no question in my mind that those guys are communicating, or they're in communication, and they're stepping through this process of everything that's involved, especially when it comes to the green energy policies, when it comes to the sanctuary state, sanctuary city policies. These guys are in constant communication. The person with the ball is Governor Pritzker. He is by far the person making the calls right now. What it used to be Michael Madigan is now J.B. Pritzker. So yes, I'm going to talk a little bit about the local issues as they pertain to this confusion, this chaos, this corruption that continues to unfold. And by all means, it's not going to go away. If you think that President Donald J. Trump, and here's the reason, let me first back up a little bit and tell you the reason why it is that they're so adamant about getting Trump, and have been since 2015 when he came down that golden escalator, as he refers to it. It's because he's unafraid. He doesn't show fear. And that's what this group of people, what has been referred to as the deep state, the establishment, that's why they're so full of fear, is because they know that he can't be bought. In fact, I have a little piece from his attorney after the indictment here recently for the January 6th craziness, because I thought we already had a congressional hearing and we formed a whole, what would they call it? He had a certain name President Trump President Trump did for this particular group of people that gathered, the select committee, but he called them the unselect committee because that's what they were. But we have an audio and a video for you, those of you that are on Facebook, of his attorney basically addressing why it is that they are just so determined and so afraid and stressed about President Trump. And what appears to be right now, President Trump will be the nominee of the Republican Party unless something major happens over the course of the next 3 or 4 months, which I don't think it is. And then compounding that even greater for the people on the radical left side of the aisle, they know that he is by far ahead of Joe Biden or whomever the Democrat Party is going to put up as their nominee. But here we go. This is President Trump's lawyer just outside of the courthouse in D.C.
Any other thoughts that the president has communicated to you in terms of why this is going on and why he calls it a witch hunt?
I think a witch hunt is really the way that anybody should describe this, because it's not something we've seen in our time. This is not even political. This is beyond that. A witch hunt is when you relentlessly attack your opponent, when you relentlessly attack the thing that you are most afraid of. People are afraid of somebody that cannot be bought by Washington. People are afraid of somebody who is independently wealthy and who has given up his good life to fight for this country. And that frightens a lot of politicians who are career politicians, unfortunately, because he'll get back there. And I know he'll be fighting for every one of us so that this doesn't happen to us.
Any other?
Exactly. So, that really encapsulates it all. We have such a sense of fear throughout this country. Some people say there's this sowing of division. It's bigger than division, because right now I'm going to share with you that I don't believe that we're ever going to find that we are united around political preferences. the Democrat Republican argument and the jockeying, that's going to be as far, I mean, the chasm between those two political organizations is never going to come together. Not in light of what has transpired over the past 7 years. Obviously, the Democrat Party was willing to weaponize every department, every agency, every three-letter agency against candidate Trump, President Trump, and now former President Trump, soon to be, hopefully, our next president, the 47th president of the United States. That chasm's never going to be filled in. We're never going to come together. In fact, that has long left the building. But what we can do is we can unite around the common cause we have as Americans, the United States of America, the Constitution, what is right, what is wrong. Obviously, I'm here today to tell you that what is currently going on in Washington, D.C., in Springfield, Illinois, and throughout a lot of the communities across the United States of America is not constitutional. In fact, it's unconstitutional. It is far from following the guidelines of what this country was founded on. And that's intentional too, because really, when you have people who are willing to subscribe to ideologies that are very consistent with the Communist Manifesto or Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, you're going to find a great chasm, per se. However, what we also know to be the case is that people like President Trump, and he's not the lone wolf out there. Believe me, there's plenty of people who are standing in the gap and are raising their voices, and they're being heard. I mean, Pat Peterson on the Morning Buzz had a young gentleman from up in the Wisconsin area. I can't recall his name right offhand, but I go back, listen to Cat's show on Friday. But this young man attended a openly endorsed municipal event for the LGBTQ community, where they had drag queens there performing and on the streets of this little community in Wisconsin, and they were doing the dollar dances and everything in front of children. And this young man showed up, and he had a blowhorn, and he basically was going to promote what his faith tells him to do, which is to be a loud voice, to go out and to spread the good news, rather than what he believes is not the right thing to do. You know, he doesn't support that public entities would allow public access to a group of people for the sake of doing something that isn't supported by his faith. So he let that be heard. He was arrested for that. Obviously, his voice and his opinions didn't matter. I also read an article that there were some provocateurs that showed up. They don't know who those people really are. They claim to be Nazis, which only fuels the flame of the division of the political ranks. And ultimately, that doesn't serve anyone, which gets back to my point. We're never going to find common ground amongst the two parties. That has gone. In fact, the solution to that, I think, is to unite around the common good of what America stands for. You know, it used to be that Chevrolet ran a commercial. It was baseball, or it was baseball. How did that commercial go? Let me see. I know many of you are just humming it to yourself, but I had it on the tip of my tongue. It was baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevrolet. Yeah, baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevrolet. Those sound like American values to me. Now, granted, I'm promoting Chevrolet, but you can put in Ford, you can put in Dodge, you can put in Tesla, you know, whatever your flavor of car is. But that's what unites us as Americans, is the common good of the things that we enjoy. In fact, before coming on air, Kevin was mentioning to me that we have plenty of sweet corn in the kitchen here at the studio. And I said to him, well, I'm pretty certain that everyone below I-80, just to the west of the suburbs, and then as far south probably as even Carbondale, has plenty of sweet corn right now because it is the sweet corn season. And with oh, go ahead, Kevin. Kevin's so good. He already pulled it up. Go ahead, Kevin.
Years that I've been living, a lot of things have surely changed. A lot of things have come and gone. Some even came back again. But through all the many changes, some things are for sure. And you know that my feeling kind of makes me feel secure. Because I love baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevrolet. Baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevrolet. They go together in the good old USA. Baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevrolet.
Now I know that it has had to advance from that, Kevin, to Jason Aldean's song. Try that in a small town, but unfortunately, that's where we find ourselves once again, is pushing the envelope beyond the values of America. And we're going to continue to see that. And there are, like I said, there are people who are willing to stand in the gap, who are willing to stand up against the craziness of the world. We're actually getting some feedback. You might be able to hear that. I don't know if you're hearing it. It must be out on Veterans Parkway, Kevin. A little bass. Somebody pulled into the lot behind the studio. So, hey, we're up against a break. We're going to figure out what it is that's going on outside. Somebody's having a party, a parking lot party or something at GPM. But we'll be back right after this here at Cities 92. I was watching it, but I was trying to figure out the bass on there. The bass was booming. Let's see here. Yes, definitely. We appreciate everybody that's coming into the chat on Facebook Live. Sorry about that. That was a kind of an abrupt ending to our segment there. And that's because we had an unbelievable bass sound coming off of the windows. And it was kind of crazy. Kevin and I were like, what is that? It almost sounded like it was in studio itself. So somebody had their bass banging, and you know what? It is a beautiful Sunday out there. And Kevin's on the phone right now, catching up with Butch Exton, our friend from the American Legion. I'm sure Butch is bringing us up to speed about different things that are going on. I'm going to look into the chat. What did you say there, Ryan McKenzie? The fourth branch of government is the media, without question. That is so true. So true. There it is. The fourth branch of government is media. But Kevin, I mean, have you ever had the bass come through the walls
that was
like that?
surprising. I don't know.
I wonder if they were in our parking lot. And,
Maybe I'll go look and see if there's anybody out there.
you know what? It's for such a time as this, bridging the gap. My wife and I were talking about that this morning, that, here we are, this is unprecedented. We have not seen times like this. The divide is so great. And when you have the timeline we now have, and I'm going to cover that when we come back at greater length, the timeline of everything going on from Hunter Biden and the Biden crime family. And anytime there's news that is coming out, whether it's China, well, the next thing you know, it's UFOs, it's Chinese weather balloon, it's an indictment of Trump. It's a pure distraction because they want to keep our eyes off of truly what's happening. I'm also going to talk a little bit about Bug's Life, because I think there's a lot of parallels between that movie where the grasshoppers try to take over the ants. And what happens is the ants finally realize that they outnumber the grasshoppers. And I'm also going to talk about a movie, and I'm hoping Kevin might be able to pull up a list of non-woke movies, because one that I had never seen, and I'm glad I did. My wife and I watched it last night, and I was really captivated by it. I didn't even get up and during the movie. Oh, well, maybe once, because I am close to 60 years of age, and that has to happen at times. But it's called The Book of Eli. Have you seen that movie, Kevin? Okay. I am back on. But my bum's on. All right, we're back on. Okay, that was a hot start to our show here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. I'm David Paul Blumenshine. This is the DPB show. You can find us here every Sunday from 1 to 3. And then after me, you have Speechless with Kevin Ferris. Now, Kevin happens to be my producer for the DPB show. I couldn't do it without him. And then he does his show all by himself. I do not produce Kevin's show. That probably wouldn't work out very well. Maybe we should try that sometime, Kevin. That's a bad idea. As Kevin said, it's a bad idea. I have to agree with him. But it was a hot start to the show today. We came in hot before we're going to break. You might have heard it. We don't know if you guys picked it up on the mics, that we had somebody that must have pulled into the parking lot, or they were very close on Veterans Parkway with their bass blaring. Obviously, they might like what we have to say. They might not like what we have to say, but that's okay. That's what makes America great, is the ability to disagree, the ability to have civil discourse when it comes to issues like we were discussing before we went to break, which is Trump and all things Trump. That is the theme of everything going on right now. What surprises me is, and I think we have another clip that's going to cover this, is why are they so adamant? If truly they don't want Trump to be the presidential nominee, then why are they putting so many eyeballs on him? Because every time that they indict Trump, and I think there was a meme that I saw, they just elevate his number. I'm going to get out of the way here. No, I got to go the other way. I'm sorry. Kevin's moving me and positioning me in the studio. Oh, he's moving me. Okay, there you go. How about I move the computer or the camera? All right. We're always trying to work on this technology here, especially since we're streaming on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Rumble. You can see us there. So anyhow, because I do get a chance to see the chat, and it's always funny. But when we say illegal activity, hold on, let me pull up my I want you to play this clip. We're going to play this clip, then I'm going to also read a meme that I pulled off of President Trump.
On March 17th, Hunter accidentally admits that it was his laptop from hell. The next day, DA Alvin Bragg indicts President Trump. June 8th, an FBI document is released showing that the Ukrainians paid the Biden crime family millions and millions of dollars. The next day, the Mar-a-Lago raid and the Mar-a-Lago indictment. Last week, Hunter Biden's sweetheart plea deal fell through when the judge realized it had blanket immunity. The following day, a superseding indictment against Donald Trump. July 31st, Devin Archer goes to testify in front of the House. That was only after they failed to put him in jail prior to the fact. What happens the next day? The January 6th indictment that we're here for today. This is not a coincidence. This is election interference at its finest against the leading candidate right now for president, for either party.
Exactly. And it's interesting because, I know we're here at the bottom of the hour, but when I come back, I want to read you this quote from Dan Bongino. I think it really ties it all together on what we're talking about when it comes around to illegal activity and what truly is taking place out there. Especially the radical left says we have no evidence of wrongdoing by Hunter, the Biden crime family. I'm going to share that with you when we come back here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. What was that?
You got to look at the camera. You're always looking at my laptop.
Well, I am because I'm trying to look to see if I'm in position where you wanted me.
Well, now you can move back when I pull it's a cinematic thing, DPB, and everybody can get, if you're watching on Facebook right now, you're getting a little bit of behind the scenes, but It's like obviously on the news, it's a little bit different because they have a lot more people to set it all up.
They have people.
It's you and
I
I
have
right
you.
here.
I
It's
have
you
you.
and I, and so
well,
when
I just need
so
the-
don't you so you don't
stage
need
left,
don't need to
stage
worry
right.
about don't need to worry about the camera or anything. Just but now you can go
Okay.
back to the center. But if I pull up a video like that, all you got to do is just move back.
that was a
little bit.
wider screen video than I'm used to.
Yep. Well, that's just how
All
how
right.
we do it here to make it look as good as I can.
And
but-
it is looking good. You're doing marvelous, Kevin. You look marvelous.
Thank
I did not wear my black shirt today.
I know.
wore
I
my
was.
button down.
Every
You're-
week I wear my black shirt with white font. And you
what I
used
have
to.
worn today, Kevin, and people might be picking up on this on the Facebook Live, is that I have a new hat. I did receive this as part of my, I should say, my wife and I became members out at one of the local shooting clubs.
Mhm.
Kevin, you were with us that day that
I
we
was.
joined and
I was
became
out there when
members.
you got that.
So they gave me this hat, so I'm promoting it. Now, this company, this place where we go and shoot, we do have a sponsor that owns a gun club that does advertise with Cities 92. That being Darnell's. They are a big supporter of Jeep or Great Plains Media and specifically Cities 92.9. But this is the other shooting club here in town. For my wife and I, it's a comfort level of where we would like to go. I have been out to Darnell's. I appreciate that. They do a great job at Darnell's, and hopefully with promoting this company on my hat, maybe, just maybe, they will become a sponsor here at Great Plains Media and Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington, Normal, and beyond. Okay, let's see here. We got the chat is lively today. Obviously, we're going to have those who are dissenting opinions. We always appreciate those. Thanks for joining us and being part of the chat. We have our lively local listeners that are definitely favorable to the conservative cause. So thank you for joining us today. As I have to look down to see the chat, but I can look up because I do have a camera on me. But thank you once again. We can't do it without you. Appreciate you. Definitely like, share, tell your friends, express it to your family. I mean, we're just covering content that you're not going to find on many news outlets throughout Central Illinois or throughout the state of Illinois, or even in this country. Media is one of our loyal fans pointed out, or I should say fans, listeners. Ryan, he's not only a listener, but he's somebody that spends time in the chat room. Ryan said the media is the fourth branch of government. Fortunately, we have a parallel economy. We have Rumble. We have other companies that have taken a stake in getting out the truth. And that's the thing I think eludes many on the radical left, because truly it's hypocrisy that they exist in, because it's what's good for me is not good for thee. And they try to gaslight everything. You know, I find it interesting because when they talk about evidence, everything they have as evidence is only evidence for about, let's see, 24 hours. Then it's no longer evidence. You know, I'm going to get to that audio clip that we played before we went to break. Once again, it was President Trump's attorney, and she's laying it out, you know, step by step. And I'm going to get into that timeline because I think it's important to understand the distractions that are created. Obviously, they have a gentleman that they're going after who really, well, just like Hunter Biden. Come on. I side with Dan Bongino on this, and I'm going to read a Dan Bongino clip. Hunter Biden's never going to serve one day in a federal penitentiary. Neither is Joe Biden. Neither is Anthony Weiner. Neither is, the list goes on, James Comey. Neither is President Barack Hussein Obama. Neither is Hillary Clinton. Well, neither is President Donald J. Trump. He's not going to serve one day in a federal court. So with that said, oh, no, that's right. You're right. I'm sorry.
He will 100% be in federal court.
He's going to be in a federal court.
He's already been in federal court.
He's going to be in a federal court, Kevin. And I think one of the things that is kind of cool is I know the left has been rabid about having that televised. They want it to be on TV.
It's weird how much info we have on President Trump and his indictments, but yet Epstein's client list is still nowhere to be found, apparently, or something.
Or how about the memoir of the shooter?
The manifesto.
The
yeah.
manifesto. The memoir, the manifesto. Thank you for correcting me because I didn't get that right. But I shared with you that I'd like to get to this piece that Dan Bongino tweeted out, and you might have heard him share this last week, but the Democrats are correct. So to our chat room, they are correct. Outside of the bank records, the suspicious activity reports, and for those of you that don't know what that is, suspicious activity reports are any fiscal transactions done through our banking system that are immediately flagged because they're suspicious. And they happen to have over 150 of those that relate to the Biden crime family. So suspicious activity outside of the bank records, suspicious activity reports, the wire transfers, the private bank transactions, the LLCs, the texts, the emails, the WhatsApp messages, the photos of Joe with Hunter's business partners, the voicemails to his son, the two business partners saying Joe is the brand, the big guy, and the chairman, the two whistleblowers' testimony, the recorded phone calls between Biden and Poroshenko, the video of Joe Biden bragging about firing the Ukrainian prosecutor, and Hunter's statements that he's giving his dad half his income. There is absolutely no evidence Joe Biden being involved. Good call, guys. And I thought, obviously, a little slapstick humor at the end of that, because, once again, no evidence out there whatsoever about what's been going on. Time and time again, we have people on the left who have plausible deniability. They gaslight us. They kind of try to create these things. They have to, and it's never going to stop. That's what I mean. This chasm's never going to be filled in. We're never going to come back together as this two-party system, which is unfortunate because America doesn't really know anything but a two-party system. I think there's going to be a viable third-party candidate. I think that possibly could be Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Running as an independent, based on what's going to transpire in the Democrat convention and everything that goes on, because they've perfected the super delegates, which ultimately choose who their candidate's going to be under the Democrat nomination. But you know what? The point being is this: if there's not going to be a bridging, there's not going to be a coming together between the two-party system, the chaos is going to continue. In fact, as things kind of show themselves to be in the face of craziness, in the face of chaos, you have people rising up, whether that's Mark Levin, whether that's Glenn Beck, whether that's Sean Hannity, whether that's Dan Bongino, whether that's President Trump,
whether that's David Paul Blumenschein.
Whether, I don't like to do that, but you know what? You're right, Kevin. You're one of those voices. Kat Peterson. I was going to get there. I was going to get the rundown of Kevin Ferris, Kat Peterson, Ty Smith, Paul Garcia when Paul was around. But these are people who are taking it to the streets. They're a voice of reason in a sense, in a time of utter sheer chaos. I mean, I know I use that word a lot, but I don't know what else to call it. Confusion. We live in the land of confusion. There was a song by Phil Collins many years ago that talked about, the land of confusion, because we're back, peddling. We constantly wash and repeat the cycles of how we exist. You know what? We have a video, audio, I should say. It is a video too, for those of you on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Rumble. But and I don't know if Kevin has that. I want to play a little piece of it because somebody challenged me. That's the one with Hillary. You'll get that. Get it pulled up. But somebody shared with me that Hillary Clinton has never denied the election results of 2016. And I was like, what? Hillary Clinton has never denied the election results of 2016? Hold on. We have a whole montage of Democrats, top Democrat leaders denying election results. Here's the audio right now, video for those of you on the streaming side of things. But here's Hillary Clinton denying the results of the election. Here we go.
You can run the best campaign. You can even become the nominee. And you can have the election stolen from you.
How can you win with Russian interference?
This is Kamala
That's the
Harris.
real
That's what I'm
thing.
scared about
No,
in 2020.
But rightly.
Because I
right.
think he's an illegitimate president that didn't really win. So how do you?
There's an
you know,
issue
fight
with our
against that
audio
in
on the
2020?
radio,
You
buddy.
are
Sorry.
absolutely right.
He's an illegitimate president in my mind.
Would you be my vice president for Canada?
That's funny, Joe.
Folks, look.
Okay.
Yeah, but and so bottom line is, I found that humorous that people on the left actually believe that Hillary never denied that President Trump won the election. In fact, if that's not the case, then why would she and the DNC spend so much time and effort to prove a fake dossier, the Steele dossier, to bring it before a FISA judge? And once again, I know we're getting deep into the weeds, and I promised my friends out there and listeners who say DPB, keep it simple. Keep it simple. Don't get too complex with all of this terminology, because we get lost in it. And it's intended to be so confusing. Because, once again, if you kind of create the board game and you can't create the rules, and the rules are ever changing, you know, that makes for an unfair game. That's similar to what has happened with our elections. We have created so many new complex rules and ways of going about getting your ballots counted that it's going to take a while before we really settle in to what seemed to be a fair, even though according to the Dems, it's suppression. You know, that's what happened in 2016, 2004, 2000. It was voter suppression. Now, we had the perfect election in 2020, according to the Dems. It was the best election that's ever happened. Well, we also turned out record numbers of voters, which statistically, now the people who really study this are saying it's not even possible that with 169 million, roughly, if that's the number, eligible voters in the United States, and only a percentage of those turned out. I think that the number was like 60% or something like that for the presidential election. Well, 60, even 65% of 169, if my math serves me right, Joe got 81 million, Trump got 75 million. 150 million is way too many to show up if only 169 million voters are actually eligible, which gets back to my show last week, right? We were confused by the numbers because here we had 1.7 million for the Republicans through 4 different gubernatorial races in the state of Illinois. And yet the Democrats went from 1.7 million in 2010 to a high point of 2.5 million in 2018, and then back down to 2.2 million in 2022. It just doesn't add up. But none of this adds up. And that, I believe, is what has got our audience so confused by what's going on, because it's confusing. But I want to get to the point that I know that we were trying to get to earlier, and I kind of got lost in the craziness of everything with looking at the chat to make sure that we're getting all your questions answered there. By all means, the text line is open, 309-451-9299, 309-451-9299. If you're just joining us, yes, it is the DPB show. Yes, we recognize that we are in a state of confusion, as Phil Collins once sang about. In fact, I'm going to try pulling up that during break, that song, because it is. I mean, we're replaying that song over and over. First it was Reagan, then it was Bush, then it was Mitt Romney, then it was John McCain. They were all the worst people to ever exist on the face of the earth. Now it's President Trump. Go ahead.
We just got, earlier we got a phone call. It was from our good friend Butch
in American Legion.
Butch Exton.
Yeah.
And I told him, I go, Butch, you call in and you give me all this information about these events and stuff. I could use a text. I could use a text.
did he
And so,
text you?
so he did. Well, I think he got his wife to do it because he told me he had a flip phone. But he got his wife to do it Monday, August 7th at
Bless
11.
your heart, Butch.
Monday, August 7th at 11 a.m. at the old courthouse in downtown Bloomington. The American Legion Honor Guard will present several names of recipients of the Purple Heart. August 7th is designated officially as Purple Heart Day. The public is invited, and if you have any questions, call Butch Exton at 309-825-2703. Again, that is Monday, August 7th, 11 a.m. at the old courthouse in downtown Bloomington to honor several recipients of the Purple Heart.
Purple Heart. And you know what? Once again, thank you, Butch. And that does not surprise me that Butch still has a flip phone. Talking about taking the complex and keeping it simple. Butch has been a man that has done that. Thank you, Butch, for your service, not only to the country, but your service to the Legion and keeping at the forefront the remembrance of those who have paid the ultimate price. But not only those who have paid the ultimate price, but those who paid the ultimate price or served our country and still are living today. They are still the heroes that this country, the foundation of this country. They are the pillars that uphold it. The parchment paper of the Constitution of the United States is just that, a piece of paper. If it wasn't for the people like Butch Exton and so many others, they are the pillars. They are the arms and the legs that create the foundation of upholding the policy that is basically put forth and mandated by the Constitution. That is the essence of what we are about here on the DPB show. Is we're going to continue to see a deluge. I mean, you talk about the dam being broken. Right now, we are in uncharted waters. In fact, I believe that many would say there has never been a time like this. That's why I believe that this election coming up is truly about the sanctity of our country, the existence going forward of, are we going to be the United States of America? Or is there going to be a national divorce? I hate to talk about national divorce, but something's going to have to give when you have this much difference between two political parties. We can't maintain this. It's unsustainable. And it's not going to get, like I said, I don't believe it's going to get better. They have chosen to cross a line that should have never been crossed. And that in of itself is the problem. I believe that many of us have the ability to say things that we can, but we don't, because we shouldn't say everything that we have the ability to say. But we're going to talk about many more things when we come back. Obviously, I want to continue to walk out that timeline of Hunter Biden versus the Trump indictments. It's extensive. It's not by chance that they line up the way they do. Nobody's going to say that's a coinkydink, because it isn't. It's intentional. It's not going to stop. And it's not going to stop from here until next November, when we finally elect another president, which I believe in my heart of hearts is going to be Donald J. Trump. Hey, we'll talk about that when we come back here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond. Okay. I love it. Look in the chat room. I see that. Look at that. I know that person. That person's near and dear to my heart, but I was looking for the non-woke movies. And I want to get into that, Kevin, when we get back, and keep me on task. I would, you've used that before on your show. So I'm going to bring up Bug's Life. I'm also going to talk about the Book of Eli, Man on the Fire, Risen, the Chosen series, Jack Ryan series, Terminal List series, Yellowstone series. I don't know. That Yellowstone series might not be woke, but boy, oh boy, Kevin.
There's a lot of stuff. I mean, it kind of depends, like, what kind of movie are you looking for? Because there's like some horror movies that are pretty good that are non-woke. There are.
What have you got for a horror movie, Kevin?
Well, there's one. I think this one's pretty good. It's called The Hunt.
Does it have? I was kind of creeped out a little bit about the Book of Eli
Oh,
with
yeah.
the fact that they end up at this house in the middle of nowhere after
Don't spoil the movie for people.
Oh,
If you're
okay.
recommending it, you don't want
All
to.
right.
You don't want to spoil it for anybody out there.
anything that deals with people eating people. I'm not big
Oh
into
yeah,
that.
cannibalism. Well, so there's this movie called The Hunt.
Or
I really
zombies.
like it. So The Hunt is it's about like basically a bunch of these rich liberal elites that want to like it's kind of like oh my god, there's an old book or movie where it's people hunting people, like The Greatest Chase or something like that. I don't know. There's an old movie or something. That's what The Hunt is basically. It's a bunch of rich liberal elites that are hunting like blue collar conservative Americans, and the blue collar conservative Americans fight back, and it's pretty cool.
Okay, so there's a list there. Thank you to Tanya Blumenshine, my beautiful wife, for supplying that list. And there's many more, like you said, Kevin.
A lot of them are like you can find some good war dramas. Like there's that movie from back in 2019, 1917 was the name of it.
Yeah.
That one's just a phenomenal film. Forgot who director Sam Mendes. It was really interesting. The way that they did it. It was like a one shot movie.
One off.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't see the Enemy of the State. Have you seen that one with Will Smith?
I have seen that one. That one's a
Gene
little
Hackman?
older, but yeah, I've seen that one.
Wow,
before.
that was pretty impactful when it
Mhm.
came to, which we know all that stuff. I mean, when we talk about wiretapping the Trump Tower, which is what Obama did, he knowingly
10
ordered
seconds, by the way.
a wiretap on Trump Tower. But I hope we put that clip up, or the link to the video of 12 minutes of Democrats denying
can do
election
that, yeah.
integrity. Yeah.
I have the Bugs Life thing too, if you want to use that.
Oh, we're using it.
You're live.
Okay. Yes, I do want to use the Bug's Life. The Bug's Life definitely kind of captivates everything we're talking about. And Kevin's been so kind. Thank you, Kevin, for pulling up the Bug's Life. He's going to get it pulled up here so we can see it. I might have to move one way or another for you that are watching us on Facebook Live or YouTube. Oh, there it is. I am going to have to.
And I
Here
do
we go.
want to let everybody know, if you're listening on the radio, we have had some technical difficulties with our audio when we're pulling up clips and stuff. So I'm hoping this all works well. It's been going in and out, but just bear with us as we obviously have technical difficulties a little bit. But let's try to play this great clip here.
We're getting better every day, though, Kevin.
Right. It's just one ant.
Yeah, boss. They're puny.
Puny. Say, let's pretend this grain is a puny little ant. Did that hurt?
Nope.
Well, how about this one? Are you kidding? How about this?
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?
Exactly. You know what? And that says it all. Bug's Life. It's showing us what two parties have created, this chasm between us, the American people, and what we stand for. And truly, the defender of the Constitution and the person who first pointed this out, because up until that point, a lot of us knew what was going on. Yours truly, obviously, I decided to get involved into politics. Who in their right mind would ever want to go to Springfield? In fact, if I won the election back in 2018 and then won again, if I were able to accomplish a victory in 2020 and then 2022, I would be in my third term as a state representative against what I believe are odds beyond the ability to legislate. Because the difference between how few people truly control the masses, well, that's what the Bug's Life is about. They know they're outnumbered. They know the ants have always been hardworking, have been out harvesting the fields and gathering and storing up and creating, the benefit for all. That's what justice is about. It's Lady Liberty stands for and justice for all. Another great movie you can add to your list with Al Pacino, which is out there. And justice for all, not for the few. And the two parties have created, unfortunately, a chasm where they pit us against each other. They create fear. I mean, the entire COVID pandemic crisis was one based on fear. It was masking and vaccine, and not to say that people who needed to be vaccinated shouldn't have been vaccinated. But now, as we get outside of these things, and it takes time, unfortunately, because we are so reactive and we do live on a basis of stress and fear and creating anxiety for people. That's a lot of what this division's about, is anxiety. In fact, I've heard it. I don't agree with it. I don't accept the LGBTQA lifestyle, but I'm respectful of it. I don't accept it, nor am I going to celebrate it. But if you listen to some people from that side of the aisle or from that perspective of life, they would tell you that there's hate and anger at a level that's never existed before. And I don't see it. What I see is people who are wanting to have their beliefs honored, their views honored, rather than a way of life that you have to accept these people, or you have to accept this group, or you have to accept that group. Well, if that group or that group of people is doing something inconsistent with what my core beliefs are, then no, I don't have to accept it, nor do I have to celebrate it. But I do have to always be humble and meek and kind and courteous. I believe being disrespectful or hateful, no. And for those small factions that do that, it's unfortunate, right? No different than up north in Wisconsin, where a group of supposed Nazis showed up for an event. You know what? We don't condone that. We condemn that. We don't condone political violence. We condemn that. Antifa, I condemn Antifa as much as I condemn any group of people who is willing to kill, steal, and destroy. Unfortunately, we live in a governmental time when our government is willing to kill, steal, and destroy. And that's what we're seeing. Hey, we're going to be back. Once again, I know I got to get to the timeline. I'm glad we got the Bugs Life out of the way, but I want to talk a little bit about the Book of Eli because I saw the movie. I'm not going to be a spoiler to the movie, but I encourage you definitely to go out and watch it. But all of this we will cover on the other side of break here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington, Normal, and beyond. Okay. We came in so hot, I hadn't even had an opportunity to get fully into my notes here. And I know that sometimes because of the camera up there and being on Facebook Live and Rumble and Twitter and if you're speechless, you're on Twitch.
I'm on
Twitch and
Twitter, Rumble, YouTube, and Facebook. I actually
and Venmo. Oh, I'm sorry, not Venmo.
I do have a Venmo, and I put it at the bottom so that if anybody
so people can just contribute to the
if
Venmo
they would
account.
like to.
Contribute to Kevin's Venmo scholarship.
No, it's me saving up for better equipment, DPB.
I thought it was to get you through the final semester of school, which
no, fortunately, I've gotten other scholarships.
You don't have to worry about that because
I have other scholarships.
Joe Biden's going to disregard the Supreme Court order and he's going to give you free money, mailbox money to get through college.
No, I wouldn't qualify because I'm
right.
still listed as a dependent by my parents, and so
not woke shows. Thank you. And look how for Disney has fallen since that movie too. You're right, Ryan. Very true. Back in the day, my daughters are 25 years of age, twin daughters. We watched a lot of Disney. Believe me, we watched a lot of Disney. Watched a lot of VeggieTales, one of my favorite. But we watched a lot of Disney, and that was back when Disney was hitting upon all cylinders, talking about, whatever happened to the movies where we celebrate the values of freedom, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This movie, as I was mentioning during the last break, um, Enemy of the State with Gene Hackman and Will Smith, uh, that is personified, what's happening. We've constantly been leveraging ourselves to a state where, unfortunate, if you believe in the good book like I do, here I got my copy right here. In fact, I was reminded of something this morning during service at the tabernacle. Yes, Timothy James Farrell, that this verse from Isaiah chapter 54, verse 17, no weapon formed against you will succeed, and you will refute any accusation raised against you in court. Sound familiar? This is the heritage of the Lord's servants, and their righteousness is from me. This is the Lord's declaration. That sums it up. The weapon formed against you will not succeed. There's no way. What do they have? If Jack Smith truly, which we know Jack Smith is purely a straw in the game of pickup sticks. He's one of the sticks who's been placed in there to serve a purpose because the guy has very little success in his career of bringing cases like this to a point where there was ever anything that was really proven. I think Mark Levin said it best. He called him a hitman. Well, that's true. I do notice my clock's not running. Is that supposed to be the case? Okay. And it always stops right there. So those folks are in a holding pattern on the radio side of things. Oh no, it's playing. Yep. Okay, I got it. It's in my ear.
That's how it is at the top of pretty much every hour of radio. It
Stops the clock. I guess I didn't recognize that. And now you say that, I'm going to have to be more attentive to it.
You always ask.
I do every week.
Same thing.
Because Kevin, you know what? When you're at a point in your life where you have all this information, you do such a better job, and so does Kat, and maybe you don't. Maybe you guys are just quicker at retaining more information and getting it out quicker than DPB. But I have my moments. I surprise you.
Well, here's the other thing too, DPB, is that this is what I've dedicated my life to. This is what you were called to, not what you were dedicating your whole life to, though. As our hecklers like to remind us, you are a realtor.
I'm a realtor. Yes.
You're a realtor.
Yeah. A realtor. I also, my list goes on. My wife does a better job of defining what my roles have been. Really what I am is I'm a child of God, and I've let God dictate, not money, no different than President Trump. I know I'm saying his name a lot at this time in my life because I'm a big supporter. I make no ifs, ands, and buts about that. Yours truly gathered a group of people here in the Central Illinois and beyond area to go out to DC. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit in the J6 indictment here when we come back. I think we're getting pretty close.
We still got, I'd say, probably about a minute.
Oh, that's Babs. Oh, then Menards. I'm sorry.
Menards.
Progressive bifocals. That's the other thing. When you have progressive bifocals, Kevin, you can look at the camera, but you have to look down. I have to really look down because the screen is far enough away on your laptop that I have to use my uppers, not my down.
Well, I'll tell you, there's nothing progressive about me, and not even glasses or anything.
Not even you know what? I should ask that they rename these things. Progressive bifocals.
I need some good conservative bifocals.
Can I get the conservative bifocals?
Okay, you got about
all right.
4 seconds.
Here we come back.
You got to wait for the speaking and everything too, because it's the hour.
Powerful, exposing, and true. You know what? I every now and then I get to catch the little bump or the lead in to my show, and you know what? I hope that's true. You know what? I heard this once said by a gentleman that I heard speaking at an event. Um, when he said somebody came up after this, it was a corporate 50 company, and this guy was very accomplished in public speaking, but he had a unique, I think he was either a magician or he was an artist, and he would draw while he was speaking or he performed while he was speaking. And somebody came up, and this was, I think, the CEO of Exxon or something, or a company like that. And he said, he goes, "You're one of the good guys, aren't you?" And the guy goes, "Yeah, I think so." And he goes, "What do you mean by that?" And and he whispers to him because he didn't want it to be said out loud. He goes, "You're a Christian, aren't you?" It's like he's speaking in code. And he said, "Yeah." He goes, "Yes, I am." Or no, that's not how it went. He said, "You can tell that you're a Christian." He says, "Well, I just hope that God believes that I am." And that says it all. You know, I believe that what we do here, what Kevin does, what Ty does, what Kat does, what anybody does on the headliners during the week is we try to deliver content and information in a manner that's digestible. You know, once again, I know that sometimes we can be in our filter bubbles, our echo chambers, and we're speaking to a higher level of listener, somebody that might tune in and they might be well versed in all things geopolitical and statewide and local wide, but not everybody's like that because it is complex. As we have said, we're trying to take the complex issues that we face day in, day out, and we're trying to simplify them. I was reading a chat over here earlier, and let's see. Who's the new guy filling in for DPB? Who's the new guy filling in? Rookie. I don't know what that's about. Ryan, you'll have to define that a little bit more. But something else caught my eye here in the chat, and I was telling Kevin before coming back on air that since I wear progressive bifocals, especially, and he said, "Well, there's nothing progressive about me." I said, "You're right. The next time I'm into my eye store, I'm going to ask for the conservative lenses rather than the progressive lenses to see if maybe I can see clearly, because right now, with the way that things are positioned between the camera for our Facebook live streaming on YouTube, Twitter, and Rumble, I have to look up at the camera, but to see the chat, I have to look at a laptop, which is far enough away that I can't look with my lowers. I have to look with my uppers. And this is probably more information than you need to know. But I did catch a comment from one of our listeners earlier who really hit upon this issue that we're dealing with. And that is, we have a two-party system. There is a chasm. There is a breach. There is a division. And it is great. And it is, I believe, insurmountable because we have crossed demarcation lines that we'll never be able to go back from. And I started mentioning it earlier before we went to break. We had a president, a president who was nominated, or I should say, he was a president-elect. Let me get out. Come on, stumble through the words until you get them out. And I just did. He was president-elect. And he was duly elected by the people of the United States of America. And we had a sitting president who was willing to spy on that president, who was willing to go along. See, I know this has been said by others who do a much better job at talk radio than I do, to realize this isn't really about the Biden crime family. It's about protecting President Obama. That is the left's Messiah. He was the coming, and he is the one that they are protecting right now through all of this. But let me get to this timeline because I keep saying I'm going to get to it. And since I have a long run here in this segment, I'm going to do that. So here's how it kind of breaks down. August 4th, 2022, the replacement head of the FBI testified to the Senate about the FBI downplaying the Hunter Biden laptop information. Obviously, the replacement head of the FBI is Christopher Wray, who came in after James Comey. August 5th, 2022, the New York Post reports that Joe Biden met with Chinese energy execs with ties to Hunter at the White House in 2014. So the New York Post is basically breaking the story of years gone by. And it's interesting that 2014 was the year before President Trump announced that he was going to run for president. August 8th, which was right after the New York Post broke this article, August 8th, they raided Mar-a-Lago, which many of you realize you just don't walk into the former president's house. There has to be ongoing discussions. I can speak into this, not only because of my experience of doing what I've done here at Cities 92, especially the trip out to DC, but my experience as being part of the presidential, or I should say, the presidential candidates motorcade out in Council Bluffs, Iowa. You just don't waltz into any of these activities. There has to be ongoing discussions. So the FBI had to be in communication with the Trump team and the Secret Service. They don't exclusively exist outside of working together. They have to. It crosses over. For instance, I know when the sweeps are done at the airports, it's the FBI that's sweeping, not the Secret Service. And there's different agencies working together. They work together always. So the Mar-a-Lago thing, obviously, it wasn't happenstance. The raid was reported. They knew that there's a potential that they were going to go in and raid Mar-a-Lago, the President Trump's residence, and try to uncover something that they were looking for as far as classified documents. Now that we see the accounting of it and some of the pictures that are coming from that, we know that a lot of it was similar to January 6th, a staged event. March 16th of 2023, Hunter Biden accidentally admits the laptop is his. Amazing. It's, a moment of clarity, I guess maybe he's, he saw the light momentarily between obviously times of being under the influence. March 30th, 2023, House hearing on the weaponization of the federal government. March 30th, 2023, the announcement of DA Alvin Bragg's indicting President Trump over the 2016 Stormy Daniels story. June 8th, 2023, an FBI document is released showing that the Ukrainians paid the Biden crime family millions and millions of dollars. June 13, 2023, the President Trump is summoned to court regarding documents from the August 8th, 2022 Mar-a-Lago raid. Amazing how that happened. July 26, 2023. And once again, I think it's best said by President Donald J. Trump. Why is it that they waited 2.5 years? If all of this were true then, as it was 2.5 years ago, then why did they wait? Why did they wait so long? So July 26, 2023, Hunter Biden's sweetheart plea deal fell through when the judge realized it included blanket immunity, basically, like the budgets of the state of Illinois and the federal budgets. It's always good to put 3,000 pages together because you can try to slide something in, which once they uncovered it, there was no plea deal. There was no sweetheart deal. July 27th, the day after the announcement of the J6 indictment against President Trump. It's amazing how that happens. July 28th, news of the Department of Justice trying to send Hunter Biden's former Ukrainian Burisma gas business associate, Devin Archer, to jail before he can testify about his knowledge of the Biden's dealings with Burisma. July 31st, Devin Archer testifies about the then Vice President Joe Biden's knowledge of Hunter Biden's dealing with Burisma gas business. August 1st, finally bringing us up to current times, President Trump's J6 indictment. And with that, that's where I kind of want to jump off. The January 6th indictment. As we said, they put together a select committee of Congress people. That's under the reign of former Speaker Nancy Pelosi, because they were going to get to the bottom of J6. And many of you have heard me speak about the time that a group of us left the station here in Bloomington and went to the January. At that time, they didn't call it the J6 event. It was just a Trump rally, Stop the Steal. For those of you that don't believe that the election was stolen, what if you don't believe that the election was stolen in 2020, when I just pointed out the fact that there are roughly 169 million eligible voters, and just a percentage of those actually voted, but yet we ended up with over 150, close to 156 million people casted votes. That almost equates to like a 90% voter turnout, which we know didn't happen nationally. That would have been great if we did, but we know that it didn't, because reportedly this was the count of people who actually voted.
Just to be clear too, so approximately 240 million people were eligible to vote in the 2020 presidential election, and roughly 66.1% of them submitted ballots, totaling about 158 million votes total. So it's not quite 90, it's about 66%. I just want to be clear on the statistics of that.
Okay, where'd you get that from? Because that was something different than what I heard.
That's the census.
The census is reporting
or Statista, I'm sorry, but they got so Statista is giving the statistics, but using numbers that they got from the census.
Okay, I stand to be corrected, because I was hearing it from another source that was reporting that 169 million were eligible.
So no, 169 million were registered. 240 million people were eligible.
200. Okay, so I have the right registered.
Yes.
The eligibility is 240. Therefore, 100.
I'd say about 80 million did not vote or weren't even registered to vote. And about 10 million who were registered didn't, which checks out when you compare it to previous elections as well. You obviously somebody who is registered is more likely to vote, but you're still going to get a decent amount of them, which is not
so at the end of the day,
majority or anything.
With the voter turnout that took place, Kevin, what we're saying is that it's a very high percentage of people who are registered, but not necessarily. So are they saying that eligible voters? And I must have misread that, because that's happened at a time or two.
Yeah. So eligible. So of the amount that were eligible, 66% voted, which is higher than usual, but not marginally higher, to raise questions about the amount of people that voted, to be clear. I just want to be clear on that, because I obviously there are questions about ballot harvesting and everything like that. What we do know, here's the thing when it comes to a lot of this, DPP, is I don't know about voter fraud and everything like that, how much that had to do with the 2020 election. What I do know, though, is that over 50% of the American population did not sufficiently know about the Hunter Biden laptop story, and about 20% of people that voted for Joe Biden that said they had not heard of the Hunter Biden laptop story said that if they had heard about it, they would have considered changing their vote. And so really, we don't even need to talk about voter fraud as being the issue.
No.
The way that we know the election was stolen was by misreporting and narrative spinning from a dishonest journalism.
Well, and
that we have in America.
Obviously, that's the point I was trying to get to, Kevin. And thank you for kind of tying that all together. Is that we had election interference in 2016. We know that to be the case. Because that was the start of trying to upend Trump from being the president. Obviously, it was beyond their wild imagination. In fact, they went on the record. President Obama went on the record. Many other highly esteemed Democrat officials plus contributors went on the record as saying President Trump would never be the president of the United States. So when we talk about election interference, and we're seeing what's playing out right now for the 2024 election, that's where I believe Stop the Steal. I don't know enough about the machines. However, I do know that plenty of Democrats have gone on the record stating that they didn't have confidence in the electronic means of counting and tabulating ballots. I too am kind of confused, because I believe that paper ballots, same day voting with an ID is the best means of a fair and free election. Doing what we currently do, that's craziness. It's created the chaos. Obviously, you're going to have the ability to get a lot of vote by mail applicants and go ahead and fill the coffers with ballots. No question in my mind. However, the part that I'd like to continue to discuss on the other side of the break is this: election interference. It manifests itself in so many ways. We have Mark Zuckerberg stating that the FBI tried to influence Meta, whatever you call it, to censor conservative sites, conservative candidates on social media. That's election interference. We had somebody who was not favorable to Trump, was favorable to Hillary, testify in a Senate hearing that he believed that social media was responsible for shifting up to 8 million votes. That's what the discussion should be around. And you're right, Kevin. It needs to be talked about. We're going to talk about it here on the DPB show after we cover a sponsor's break. Okay, now I can catch up with my conservative lenses. I'm glad that you've renamed my glasses to my conservative lenses rather than my progressive bifocals. They are now my conservative bifocals. My conservative bifocals tell me that there are people in the chat eyeballing breaks, the trying to figure out when time counts, struggling with multiple screens, laugh out loud. You're right, Ryan. You've been in the seat before, so you know what it's like. It has been. It's very challenging. I'm the same way. I'm in between age and having no tech and some tech. Yeah. Let's see. What does Kevin say? I like this. Kevin, you were in the chat.
I did. Well, I felt people were commenting on and we obviously were talking about our tech. So while you were talking, I offered a little bit of addition to the chat.
I like that. I'm gonna have to read it now with my conservative bifocals.
I'll bring it up on the screen for you.
Wow, look at that. I can almost see that with my conservative bifocals. DPB learning to use our technology has a childlike innocence that never fails to amuse.
It's true. You're always like, oh,
if you think that's childlike, you should know. You should see my reaction to TikTok videos out of my YouTube channel.
Yeah, those are funny.
Kevin pulls up some of the
I don't even have honestly, some people think I have to go to the depths of the internet to find those. Nope, they're pretty surface level.
Here we go. Ty Smith's promo and then DPB bump. We're back on. But I am a warrior, and so is President Donald J. Trump. It says I'm not a warrior. I love that song because I have faith like Daniel in the lion's den. But speaking of that, I don't believe Trump set out to truly be in this particular situation. Do you think if somebody would have said, gosh, Donald, stop living your life that you live. Usually at that time it was amongst Democrat donors because he was a real big Democrat donor at one time in his life. And, give up all of the fame and the fortune and your very, I think a very successful life to jump into the fray of politics in Washington, D.C. And the only reason he did it, and it goes all the way back to a 1980s edition of Oprah Winfrey, where she asked him specifically, will you run for president? And I think it was 1988. And his answer is prophetic. He said, I if things get bad enough, I will. Well, obviously in the 1980s, things weren't bad enough for Donald J. Trump. But in 2015, he came to the conclusion, which thank God he did, because this man has single-handedly exposed, I believe, the underbelly of what has created now this division. Because what else do you do as the Democrat Party if you are so steeped in corruption that, as I mentioned earlier, the list goes on and on and on. with the evidence that is out there, even though the Democrat side of the aisle would like to deny the evidence exists. Show us the evidence. Show us the evidence. If you weren't with us earlier in the show, Dan Bongino did a great job of explaining the evidence for the Democrats. Because, of course, he's playing a little slapstick comedy here, or humor. Outside of the bank records, the suspicious activity reports, which are banking records of transactions processed through banks, the wire transfers, the Privat bank transactions, the LLCs, the texts, the emails, the WhatsApp messages, the photos of Joe with Hunter's business partners, the voicemails to his son, the two business partners saying Joe is the brand, the big guy, the chairman, the two whistleblowers' testimony, the recorded phone calls between Biden and Poroshenko, the video of Joe Biden bragging about fire. You remember that video? He's sitting on a stool and he's got Mikey. Mike, this is more of Mikey's territory here. He also refers to the deputy to Merrick Garland, because she's involved in this too. And some people believe she's actually a lot more involved than Merrick Garland is. But needless to say, so they've got that on tape. I mean, it's out there. They've shown it many times. Now, granted, mainstream media doesn't spend a lot of time showing that video where he says, bottom line is look at that. The prosecutor got fired. Oh, wow. And he doesn't say that. He used a little more colorful language. But other than all of those things, there is no evidence that Joe Biden was involved. And that's so true. But it also applies to Hillary. And I think Kevin pointed out earlier, in the midst of the Jeffrey Epstein list, look at all the stories that have come and gone and gotten buried by the mainstream media. And this is why a believing world simply finds what's happening so unbelievable. Because I know this is a cliche, you can't make this stuff up. What is happening right before our very eyes? And it does. At times it burns. However, I believe that we should all have faith like Daniel in the Lion's Den and be more like President Donald J. Trump. I bet you today, well, let's just see what President Donald J. Trump was doing last night. I think that he was out in South Carolina. Are you familiar with the rally he had in South Carolina last night, Kevin? All right. Well, I didn't expect you to watch it because you're a DeSantis guy. But, well, maybe you're a Vivek guy now.
My God. It's not about which guy I am, David. I have other things I'm doing on it. I was studying for my LSAT all day yesterday. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about
it was my day off from work, and you want me to keep paying attention when I'm not getting paid for it?
Well, yes, I do. Yes, I do. So here's a quote from Trump. This was good, from Real America's Voice. If they wanted to run against Trump, they wouldn't have every DA. They say if they wanted to run against Trump, they wouldn't have every DA in the nation after me. By the way, in virtually every poll, we're kicking Biden's behind. And he doesn't say behind, but he actually said that at the rally last night. And this man, in the face of fear, and this is where this tie-in, and this is what I want to talk about when we come back in the last part of the show, is this movie, that I had mentioned earlier in the show. And that's, what was the name of it, Eli?
Book of Eli.
Book of Eli. I was trying to get there, Kevin. I was thinking the Book of Eli. It is so synonymous with what is currently happening in so many different ways. Now, granted, my wife defines it as Mad Max with a Christian Denzel Washington. But I'd like to talk about that more because it reminds me so much of what is in front of Trump, especially going into this 2024 primary and then on to the general election. But we'll talk about all things Trump and the Book of Eli when we come back here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal.
Of course, I say that I don't pay attention when I'm not getting paid in jest.
Kevin, nobody's believing that. They know how you are.
But the other thing,
Kevin, you work your tail off. You work 24/7, like you just said. You're studying for the LSAT because you have higher aspirations.
But
you want to be one of Trump's lawyers.
Well, God, I don't know how they do
He'll
it.
still have indictments after. By the
Well,
time
he
you
will.
get-
He will. But I
don't
don't
worry,
know.
they'll still be indicting him.
I don't
there.
know. I don't know how those attorneys do it. I'd go crazy. But there is something that I think is important, and obviously this is not the topic of the show today, but I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to mention this on some show eventually. Just the importance of unplugging for a day.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to say I was totally unplugged, but like I unplugged myself from the media and from politics and everything for most of yesterday. And it felt really good just to like focus on myself, focus on what I can control and what I can do. Cause so much that we look at in our world right now and that we get that I get fired up about on my show, that you're obviously fired up about, it's things that overall, like we can talk about it, but in the grand scheme of things, we don't have much control over it. And that just makes me so much more angry about
we
it.
don't have control outside of the third party person.
Exactly.
Because there are people listening to you, Kevin, and they do. I mean, I know that there's a group up there in Livingston County. Thank you for tuning in. That definitely listens to what you have to say. But
you know what
well
I mean?
Done, Danielson, #1 boy son. You remember Danielson in the movie? You know what I'm talking
From
about. Karate Kid.
Karate Kid, yeah.
Karate Kid. You have definitely reached a point where you realize the importance of stepping away from the fray.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and not to get too religious on you here, but Jesus knew that, right?
Mm-hmm.
He said, I have to go away. I can't be continuing to be part of this drama. And believe me, most of everything of Jesus's life was pretty much drama. And you're right. What now? Granted, he's the Son of God, so there were things he could control, but and at times didn't, right?
Yep.
Because even when he was notified of Lazarus's death, he didn't say, "Oh my gosh, I've got to sprint to Lazarus's side." No, he waited a few days because he knew what he was capable of doing. Called him out of the grave, right?
Absolutely.
Raised him from the dead. But you're right, Kevin. You should step away from it. You should definitely unplug. But don't forget to have me make sure that our audience is aware of what Speechless is going to be about today.
Yeah, I can make sure that happens.
I always like to do that at the end, but you know, somewhere we can work it in. But I want to get to the book of Eli. That in of itself is without giving too much of it away. But I might give a lot of it away.
Yeah, you want to make sure you don't want to spoil the movie because you can hit on central themes, but if you're trying to tell people to watch it, David,
but I do want to get people to watch it. Well, even if they watch it, I think they won't believe their eyes. It's just like enemy of the state. Enemy of the state. Okay, we got plenty of time. All right, let me look down here in the chat. Thank you for those who are chatting with us today. Definitely like, subscribe to our channels, whether that be Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Rumble. Let's be getting to Rumble, which is fascinating because as much as I say we live in an echo chamber or a filter bubble, I find that to be the case too with the left. Yes, I have been hard on myself lately. Not really, because Kevin, what we were talking about just during the break is this. Kevin had mentioned that he might have misspoke, but he really wasn't misspeaking. Kevin took an opportunity yesterday because he is preparing to take the LSAT, which again. Well, again. I mean, believe me, it's not an easy test to take.
Not at all, not even a little bit.
And Kevin has aspirations to be an attorney. And I just had, in jest, I'd said one of Trump's attorneys because they still will be indicting Trump by the time that Kevin gets through his bar exam and becomes a licensed attorney at law, Kevin Ferris. He might, isn't there an attorney talk show already?
There's multiple, the majority.
What's the one that we play on cities here?
I don't know which one we play.
Hands on the Law.
Oh, maybe. The way I see it is most commentators have some level
handle on the law, not hands on the law.
Many of them have some, like Ben Shapiro is an attorney. I believe Laura Ingraham was an attorney. Like a lot of people.
Chris Christie's an attorney.
Well,
I couldn't help it. I had to throw that one out there, Kevin.
A lot of your big commentators that, especially in the conservative world, even many liberal ones, also in some way either have a law degree or are related to a legal or political field.
This is like feeding into the lawyer jokes, you know. What's 100 lawyers in a pool up to their neck? with water?
I don't know.
Not enough water.
No.
That's right. That's sorry for our friends out there in the profession of being an attorney.
No, it's
we
all
need
good. It's all good.
lawyers.
When you get sued or something, DPP, just don't expect anyone to help you. That's
No, I'm going to come to
I'm
you,
kidding.
Kevin.
I'm
I know
kidding. I'd
that you're
help
going to
you.
be a good lawyer. If that's truly what's in your heart is to be a lawyer, and I know that we're kind of getting off topic because you had mentioned you took time to unplug, to study, but to also step away from all of this. I encourage everyone. You know what I do, Kevin, in the morning? I walk my big St. Bernard. I have one of my earbuds in, and I'm listening to scripture. That is where I find peace and tranquility. And I think it's easy to get caught up into the stress of the world, the anxiety of the world, everything out there. I don't believe it's division. I believe it's fear. I believe it's fear-induced stress and anxiety. And what you said that you were doing is you were stepping away from that fear, from that stress, from that anxiety that can just consume us to a point that we get so caught up in this. My point of not only the Book of Eli, but of President Trump, and I do want to speak into this Book of Eli movie. By all means, I'm recommending that. But first, go see Sound of Freedom. Then you can go on video of one of the select videos, I think Amazon Prime or something, and watch the Book of Eli. Is walking into the face of the valley of the shadow of death. You know, it comes from a psalm, right? But you fear no evil because you have your rod and your staff to protect. Well, you're equipping yourself. That is what we do to kind of recharge our batteries. We have to equip ourselves because in this world where they have found, and I do believe this is something that is part of the platform of the Democrat Party, is they need chaos. They need to induce fear. They need to share with you that you can't do it by yourself. That is the difference between the party system, right? One believes in limited government, small government. The other believes that government is the answer to all of your problems. And, you know, those two things are never going to find common ground. In fact, now that elections are being interfered with on both sides of the aisle, don't get me wrong here. I believe the Republicans have done plenty of interference. In fact, as a country, we've interfered in elections. It's just, for whatever reason, this is something that has truly taken us down a road that has led us to where we're at. We're kind of almost reaping what we sowed, Kevin. We did this in other countries. Now it's come home to roost. And it's on both sides of the aisle. It's not only the Democrats that are interfering in elections. There's plenty of Republicans that are doing it too. But it's created this chasm. The ability to walk into the lion's den, as Trump has done, or in the midst of the Book of Eli. And just a little, you can read this online. I'm not going to be a spoiler to the film, but Denzel plays an unbelievable character. Obviously, for me, it's very faith-based, as his approach of how he lives out life after World War III, basically the explosion of the world from east to west coast, all throughout the world, and how he acts and carries himself in a time when obviously it's not good. And unfortunately, we see this in Scripture. Revelation, the book of Revelation, points out, and it tells us that what lies ahead, if we continue in the trajectory we're going as a society, and man's inability to reconcile away from control. And that's what it is. When we hear reports about the Biden crime family accepting millions of dollars of being involved in international business with countries who would be perceived as not necessarily loving, caring, and sharing towards the United States, then it raises an awareness that, wow, are they in this for the people, or are they in this for themselves? Is this selfish, self-serving? I believe that is the case. And I believe that's what has a majority of people just beyond their wits' end. And it's hard to understand it. Believe me, I get overwhelmed by it too, Kevin. Hence the reason why I take those walks, why I look for opportunities to carve out time. You know, another thing that I do, Kevin, I will leave this thing called a cell phone. Obviously, for those that are watching us on Facebook, and don't forget, you can watch us on Facebook, on YouTube, Twitter, and Rumble. We are live, but I take this thing called a iPhone, and I lay that right on my nightstand, and I leave it behind. Now that in of itself is, you talk about disconnecting. That's disconnecting. And it's funny. You do feel a little loss. It has become an appendage. Think of how much time we spend involved in whatever it might be, rather than just being free with the ability to turn. Even when I go on my little walks, I'm using an earbud, and I'm listening to an app, the Bible app, the U version on my phone. It's still plugged in. But the ability, and this is why I'm encouraging you once again, the Book of Eli, because obviously he too has some technology after nuclear proliferation and fallout. Once again, not trying to give away too much of the movie, but but you can read about that. I mean, I think everybody's kind of curious. What's the movie about? Well, that's what it's about. It's about his survival after the ultimate happens, you know, where we destroy each other, which is why I allude to the fact that as things appear, you know, we are headed in that direction, because people in power, getting back to the grasshoppers can't see their way, knowing that they're outnumbered by the ants. And they know that what would happen if the ants truly come together, the people, we the people, came together, we would, in a heartbeat, I truly believe President Trump would stop the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. I believe he would stop China in their advancements towards Taiwan in 24 hours. I believe that he would reestablish energy independence with the liquid gold that's right below the United States of America in 24 hours. We obviously know that President Biden, or I should say Resident Biden, he did it within 24 hours. He cut it off. He stopped the production here to go elsewhere to other countries who aren't always warm, fuzzy, and loving, caring, sharing towards the United States to trade with. But I believe that that could be done in 24 hours. I believe things can happen quickly. And I think we can change the trajectory away from the time that is depicted in the Book of Eli. We have the ability. We have the people. We have enough ants. That's what I'm saying. Give ants a chance, Kevin. That's where it's at. The grasshoppers don't have to lord over us. Their tyrannical ways of controlling and manipulating everything. There's nothing that's free from manipulation right now, which is really sad, because you see that, you know, people, the way that they respond and act towards others. You know, we saw this the other night. My wife and I were out at one of our local watering holes, and there was somebody that we knowingly know is favorable to the radical left's way of doing things. But once again, it doesn't mean that that person isn't worthy of respect and dignity. But when you see the expression, when they see conservatives, and that's what I am. I don't consider myself a Republican. I vote Republican most of the time. I've run as a Republican candidate, but I view myself as a Christian first, then a conservative. And that's not always easy to live out that life, especially with what we face. But walking boldly up to people who might disagree with you, and just be welcoming, you know, believe it or not. And I found this to be true amongst most of my conservative friends. We talk a lot about a lot of things. Well, not you and I, Kevin. We talk a lot about politics because we obviously are constantly show prepping and putting together YouTube videos and TikTok reactions and things like that.
Yeah.
But there are times, Kevin, I think that we speak into your life and your future and what you're planning on doing. But that's how I'd like to see more interaction like that. I put up a post on Facebook, and you can go and see that. It's a few down on my personal Facebook page. But it basically says we've lost the ability to communicate between bowls. So says between rice bowls. And it really gives everybody an opportunity to kind of identify, when did you first encounter this person? Or tell us one word that would define your relationship, your connection with this other human being. And I think we've lost that. And that's kind of what you were saying, that you lose yourself sometimes when you spend so much time entrenched and consumed into the nastiness, into the underbelly of this world. It can suck you in. Don't let it. That's where the stress and the fear and anxiety comes from. Obviously, it has created within our culture. We happen to be, and I think these numbers are true. Now, Kevin, you can fact check me on this, but we consume like 60% of the world's psychotropic drugs. I mean, we only make up like 6% of the population. Kevin's fact checking me already.
What was exactly the statistic you said?
So we make up about 6% of the world's population.
America.
Okay. But we consume like 60% of the psychotropic drugs that are manufactured. That means that mentally stability and people being overdiagnosed for whatever it might be, which is true, there is a great deal of anxiety, depression, phobias, panics, PTSD, depression, obsessive compulsive disorder, which I kind of own that one myself a little bit because I can be. But even if those numbers are wacko, I
can't find that exact statistic. It might be true. One thing that is kind of staggering though is just around a quarter of Americans, 1 in 4, are now on a prescription mental health medication.
Yeah.
So some level of a psychotropic drug. So 1 in 4.
Yeah. So we make up such a small percentage of the world's population, but we consume, because I don't know how much psychotropic drugs are actually produced, but I know one thing, we do consume a lot.
There's a litany.
We are so consumed with the stress and anxiety. I don't believe we're consumed with racism and white supremacy and homophobia.
No, only the Democrats are.
Yeah, because that's gaslighting. What we are consumed with is stress and frustration and anxiety. And a lot of that comes from what we do. I mean, we turn internally inside of ourselves for answer, actually, rather than looking up. But we're going to talk about that when we come back to end the show. Give Kevin a chance to tell you what's going to happen in the upcoming 2 hours of Speechless. I think he's got a show. He said he's super pumped before we came into the station today for what he has in store. So we're going to give him an opportunity to let us know what he's going to cover, but we'll do all of that when we come back here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond. Okay. Yes, I am. That's something my beautiful wife shares with me all the time. Yeah, it's kind of like, you remember the movie, is it Liar Liar? I never saw the whole movie. Jim Carrey, right? Where he can't tell a lie.
Because he's an attorney, and then.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I wasn't saying that because you're studying to be an attorney, Kevin. I just was remembering that because my wife, commenting in the chat room on Facebook Live, is saying that he's transparent as he can possibly be, because I don't know what it is about myself. Yes, I do. I do know what it is. I just can't help but just tell it like it is. I feel that it's too easy. We have enough people out there misleading everyone, being dishonest. I mean, even doing the research on the timeline of Hunter Biden and Trump indictments, there are so many different reports. I look up beyond the camera here in the studio, and we have a TV set, and there's a golf outing going on right now, and there's a baseball game playing next to it. And that's what I think is really cool about sports, because you can define unequivocally what the goal is, right? If you're golfing, you want to put the little ball into the hole. And you're either going to hit a bad shot, a good shot, you're going to perfect the game. Baseball, the ability to hit the baseball from a pitcher's release on the pitcher's mound. to put it into play. You can define those things, but in the world that we're in, where we're doing talk radio, especially around policies and issues regarding people, there are so many people that have, oh yeah, that's right, I'm on Facebook Live, so I can say this. They've bastardized the thing. And I think I probably can say that on radio. I can say that on radio. Thank you, Kevin. I got to check these things with Kevin. He knows a lot of stuff, but they've bastardized it where it's hard to really get a true picture of what is honest and true. We have muddied that, and we have conditioned it, and we have engineered it so it seems like it's more palatable. Even if it's a lie, it's more palatable. J.B. Pritzker will come out and not miss a beat and say he's balanced the budget 4 years in a row since he took over as governor. And he fluffs it and he engineers it, and you would truly believe that's true, and it's not.
You're coming back.
I know it's been a tough show. It's been a tough show for me to get through today, and I knew it would be, because we're looking at what is transpiring around us. What is true? What is not true? How in the world can we be in a position where the former president of the United States, who now is running again to be the president, is currently under all these indictments? And I know that one of the unfavorable Trump supporters, or no, non-Trump supporters on our chat room said, well, because he's guilty. Oh, well, of course he is. According to the left, the man's guilty. They'd like to have him put away forever. And breaking news, Trump will not go to jail. Trump will not serve 1 day in a federal penitentiary. Neither will Hunter Biden, unfortunately. Neither will Joe Biden. Neither will Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and the list goes on. And part of that is because we do have a broken system. We have a two-tiered judicial system. Now, granted, Trump, on the other hand, was just somebody that wanted to fight the system. And he stood up against the establishment, because this has been going on for years. And I think we can track it all the way back, at least to when I was born in 1963, which, after shortly being on this earth, we had the JFK assassination, which I still think there are so many unanswered questions about that, well beyond the Oliver Stone depiction of his assassination. But I mean, those rumors have traveled for many decades. And at some point, now that we have these means of communicating with you, whether that be streaming on our social media platforms, Twitter, Rumble, YouTube, and which one did I miss? Facebook. Oh, because I'm right there.
Yep, you're right there on Facebook right now.
So we have these means. We have the radio. I took over starting almost 3 years ago. This is my third year of broadcasting since 2020. Or is it 3 or 4? 3 years, because it was the end of 2020, 21, 22, 23. Yeah, because we're at 23. So 3 years of doing this. I didn't set out, as we said earlier, to be a talk show personality or on-air talent. I don't consider myself that. However, I do look at what has transpired. Hopefully I have brought content to this time of day on Sundays from 1 to 3, where I've had experts like Dr. Tom Pelura, where I had candidates, whether it be senatorial candidates and Mark Curran, or congressional candidates and Rodney Davis or Darren LaHood, but really trying to get to Darren Bailey, Tom DeVore, Stephanie Trussell. The list goes on, because I think that you, the audience, our listeners, you're looking for the truth, because we know biblically it says the truth will set you free. And that's so true. So, talking about the truth setting you free, I don't want you to miss 1 minute of the upcoming show, Speechless. Kevin, obviously across the way, has been working, as he always does, to create the best show possible. Kevin, tell them what you're going to cover in
Well,
the next 2 hours.
Here's the thing, David, is we have had one of the most busy weeks in American politics in a long time. I mean, think about it. Just less than a week ago, Devin Archer made his testimony to the House Oversight Committee. Within days, not only did everything come out about that and people began analyzing previous statements made by President Biden and how they conflicted with testimony from Devin Archer, it was very quickly announced that Trump would be indicted and was subsequently indicted and had his arraignment in DC in regards to the January 6th. Obviously, you talked a lot about that, but so my plan is to break down just every little facet of not only the Biden crime family being exposed in their crime, but also how the media has spun narratives to distract the American public and in some ways brainwash them into believing certain things are more important than others, when in reality, all of it should be talked about. I'm going to break down each and every one of Trump's current indictments, talk a little bit about his pending criminal investigation and likely fourth indictment that will be coming in Georgia. And then I also have a few other social stories to cover as well. One that I thought was very interesting, I got it on Friday, is a former porn star went viral for giving marriage advice, which I just think is absolutely hilarious. Honestly, I think we're going to have to do a YouTube video
reaction video to that.
For
wow,
you at
Kevin,
some point.
I don't even know where I'm going to have to go to confession before I give that TikTok reaction.
Yeah, because she
and after,
and she's,
before and after.
And also, not to mention, this former porn star is married and divorced 3 times. And so her marriage advice is obviously sound.
Well, it sounds like she can dial in something on marriage advice.
She knows something about marriage.
She's been married 3 times.
She's quite experienced.
Cumulative total of how many years she's been married. I guess you can take that into consideration.
But
she's
yes,
been married more than half of her life.
All that and more coming up soon on Speechless.
You know, I was looking real quick. I was scrolling through Truth once again, the parallel economy. You've got Truth, you've got Rumble, you've got now X / formerly Twitter. You have a plethora. You've got still out there. I know there's other avenues for social media that people have gravitated away from mainstream platforms such as Facebook. But Truth is really kind of cool. I was looking at how Trump kind of defines DC now, which basically he says the places. I know he referred to Haiti at one time as not a pleasant place to be. I'm not going to repeat what he said because it is purely hearsay. In fact, if Dick Durbin said that he heard it, we know that it's probably not true. But he has some great comments. So I encourage you to go out to Truth Social and see what Trump has put out there. There is no way I can get a fair trial with a judge assigned to the ridiculous freedom of speech, fair elections case. Everybody knows this, and so does she. We will be immediately asking for recusal of the judge on a very powerful grounds, and likewise for venue change out of DC, which for every reason he should. Hey, thanks again. Once again, stay tuned in, stay vigilant, be the person walking into the storm. We need more people because there is calm within the eye of the storm. Stay in the eye of the storm. Until next week, we love you here at Cities 92.9. Peace, love, and shalom. Until next week.